Milo pushed the mop across the shiny metal floor of the space station, humming a small tune to himself. The station was huge, with tall ceilings, blinking lights, and alien workers moving quickly through corridors. Milo's job was simple: clean up, fix small problems, and stay out of trouble. Humans were rare on this station, and most aliens thought them weak and useless. Milo had learned long ago not to argue. He liked his quiet life. No one bothered him, and he didn't bother anyone. But that day, while cleaning a narrow service tunnel behind the maintenance bay, Milo heard a soft, pained sound. It was like a tiny cry. He froze and listened. The sound came again, faint but desperate. Curiosity pulled him closer. In a small, dark corner, huddled among discarded wires and old panels, he found it. A tiny hatchling dragon, no bigger than a cat, shivered and wheezed. Its scales were dull and its eyes barely opened. Milo's heart clenched. He had never seen a dragon up close, only on data screens and holobooks. Most aliens on the station treated dragons like dangerous tools or weapons. But this one, it looked innocent, weak, and in need of help. Milo knelt slowly. "Hey, little one," he whispered. "Are you okay?" The hatchling let out a faint squeak and tried to move, but it fell sideways, too weak to lift itself. Milo's mind raced. The station rules were strict. Keeping a dragon in the tunnels could get him fired, or worse. But he couldn't just leave it to die. He picked up the hatchling carefully, cradling it in his arms. The tiny body trembled against him. Milo noticed a small wound on its side and dry, cracked skin. His eyes narrowed. He might be just a janitor, but he had some medical training from the old Earth courses he took for fun. If he could clean the wound, feed it, and keep it safe for a few days, maybe it would survive. He carried the hatchling to a hidden storage room he used for cleaning supplies. It wasn't much, just a small closet with boxes and a sink, but it was quiet and out of the way. Milo gently laid the hatchling down on a blanket he found. "You're safe here," he said. "I'll take care of you." Over the next few days, Milo worked carefully. He mixed a small formula from the nutrient packs the station used for animals, cleaned the wound, and whispered to the hatchling to keep it calm. It took a long time for the dragon to even open its eyes fully. Milo gave it a name, Ember, because of the faint glow in its tiny chest, like a small spark waiting to become fire. It wasn't easy. Aliens passed by the closet, asking strange questions about noises or smells. Milo smiled and said he was just organizing old supplies. No one suspected the tiny dragon curled up under blankets. He even rigged a small sensor to monitor Ember's temperature and breathing. Every time the little dragon moved or hissed softly, Milo felt a thrill in his chest. He had never felt responsible for a life like this before. Ember started to respond to him. Its small wings twitched when Milo approached, and it let out a soft, happy chirp when he offered food. Milo laughed quietly. "You're going to make it, little spark," he said. He spent hours talking to Ember, telling stories about the station, about humans, about simple things he thought the little dragon might understand. He didn't know if dragons could understand words, but the hatchling seemed to like his voice. Milo began to notice other things too. Ember had sharp instincts even as a baby. It flinched at certain sounds, smelled things before Milo could see them, and sometimes twitched toward danger in the tunnels. Milo realized that saving Ember wasn't just an act of kindness, it might also be important for the station. But for now he focused only on keeping it alive. One night, as the station lights dimmed for maintenance, Milo sat beside Ember, holding it close. He thought about how small and weak the dragon was, and how different the aliens treated humans. Everyone thought humans were fragile, unimportant. Milo had been one of them for a long time, quiet and unnoticed. But here he was, saving a life that no one else cared about. Somehow that made him feel powerful. Not in strength, not in weapons, but in courage and care. Ember opened one eye and looked at him. Milo smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "I've got you." That night, as the station hummed with lights and machines, Milo and Ember rested together. No one else knew the tiny secret hidden in the maintenance closet. A human janitor and a dying hatchling had found each other, and the first bond between them had begun. Little did Milo know this small act of kindness, this quiet choice to care for someone else, would change everything. A spark had been lit, and it would grow into something no one on the station could ever imagine. Days turned into weeks, and Milo's hidden hatchling began to grow stronger. Ember's scales brightened to a soft gold, and the small spark in its chest seemed to pulse with life. Milo watched in awe as it stretched its tiny wings, testing them for the first time. Every movement was careful, unsure, but full of energy. Milo laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "Slowly, little spark," he said. "You'll fly when you're ready." The secret of Ember's existence weighed on Milo, but he didn't mind. He had become an unlikely protector, always alert for any alien patrols or curious staff passing near his storage closet. He moved quietly like a shadow, bringing Ember food, water, and supplies from the station stores. Sometimes he even read to Ember from the old Earth holobooks he had saved. Stories of dragons, heroes, and distant worlds fascinated him, and he hoped they would inspire Ember too. It was during one quiet evening as Milo was cleaning the storage room, that Ember first responded in a way that surprised him. The hatchling lifted its head and tilted it toward him, blinking in a strange, knowing way. Then it chirped, a clear, loud sound almost like laughter. Milo froze, his heart beating fast. You understood me?" he whispered. Ember twitched its wings again and nudged Milo's hand with its tiny snout. Milo smiled. "I think you did." From that moment, a new bond began to form. Milo and Ember didn't just share food and warmth, they shared understanding. Milo taught Ember to trust him, and Ember showed Milo that it was smarter than anyone had guessed. The hatchling learned to move quietly, to hide when someone came close, and even to respond to Milo's gentle commands. It was remarkable. Milo often thought about how humans were underestimated by the aliens. Here he was, a simple janitor teaching a dragon to survive. Life in secret wasn't always easy. One morning, a group of alien engineers passed by the storage closet, talking loudly. Milo froze as Ember whimpered softly. He quickly hid Ember under a pile of blankets. "Shoo, it's okay," he whispered. The aliens continued on, oblivious, and Milo exhaled in relief. Every day was a risk, but Milo didn't care. Saving Ember had become more important than anything else in his life. As Ember grew, it began testing its wings more boldly. Milo spent hours in the hidden room, letting it flap and jump, always careful to make sure it didn't hurt itself. Sometimes Ember would climb onto Milo's shoulders, chirping happily, and Milo would laugh, holding it steady. The bond between them was more than friendship. It was trust, respect, and something deeper. Milo realized he had never felt this way about anything before. One day Milo decided to teach Ember something new. Using small pieces of metal and discarded parts from the maintenance bay, he built a tiny obstacle course. "You can do this," he encouraged, placing Ember at the start. At first, the hatchling hesitated, unsure of the strange shapes and gaps. But Milo clapped softly and guided it along with gentle nudges. Ember jumped, crawled, and finally leapt over the last obstacle. Milo cheered quietly. "Yes, that's it." Ember chirped back, excitement in its golden eyes. Milo also noticed something unusual. Ember seemed to sense danger before it happened. Once, an alien security droid came too close to the storage closet, its sensors scanning for anomalies. Ember hissed softly and Milo froze. He moved quietly, pulling Ember into a hidden crate. The droid passed by without noticing anything. Milo realized that Ember's instincts could be valuable, perhaps more than anyone on the station knew. Despite the dangers, Milo never regretted his choice. He would wake early, clean the station, and then sneak back to Ember, spending every moment he could with the hatchling. They shared simple joys, watching the lights of distant stars through small observation panels, listening to the hum of the station engines, and even playing gentle games Milo invented to exercise Ember's growing body. As the weeks passed, Milo began to feel proud. Not just proud of saving Ember, but proud of what he was teaching it. Compassion, trust, courage, these were the traits that made humans different, that had allowed him to see the potential in a dying creature no one else cared about. Milo realized that, in a way, Ember had saved him too. The little dragon gave him purpose, excitement, and a sense of responsibility he had never known. One evening, as Milo held Ember in his arms, the hatchling nestled its head against his chest. Milo whispered softly, "You're going to be strong, Ember? One day the whole station will see just how powerful you are." Ember chirped in agreement as if it understood every word. Milo smiled, feeling a warmth in his heart. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing clearly. He and Ember were connected now, and nothing could break that bond. Little did Milo know, the bond he nurtured in secret would not remain hidden forever. The skills, intelligence, and loyalty Ember was learning would soon turn the tide of events in ways no one could imagine. Milo, the human janitor, had begun something far greater than he realized. Together, he and Ember were planting the first seeds of a story that would change the station, and perhaps the galaxy, forever. For now, though, it was enough to sit quietly, watching Ember grow, feeling the gentle rhythm of its breath against his chest. A janitor and a dragon, sharing a small room in a giant space station, forming a bond that no alien rule or danger could ever break. And in that quiet connection Milo felt something new, hope. Years passed and Ember was no longer a tiny hatchling. The small spark Milo had found in the tunnels had grown into a dragon with glistening gold scales and wings strong enough to slice the air. Milo watched it stretch and flap carefully in the hidden room he had prepared for it, feeling a mixture of pride and awe. Ember had grown faster than Milo ever imagined. The bond between them was stronger than ever. They understood each other without words, and Milo had learned that patience, kindness, and care could teach even the wildest creature to trust. Life on the station had changed as well. Milo had become more confident, moving through corridors with a quiet self-assurance that only came from knowing he was protecting something precious. He still cleaned the floors, fixed broken machines and went unnoticed by most, but he was no longer just a janitor. He had a secret power no alien could ever guess. One morning the alarms rang across the station. Red lights flashed and a loud voice announced, "Warning, intruders detected. Security teams to all sectors." Milo froze, his heart hammering. He knew immediately what it meant: pirates, smugglers, or worse. The station's defenses were high-tech, but the invaders were known to attack quickly, destroying anything in their path. Milo's first thought was to hide Ember. He ran to the storage room, but when he arrived he found Ember already alert, wings spread, eyes glowing faintly. Milo felt a strange sense of relief mixed with awe. Ember seemed ready, almost as if it understood what needed to be done. Milo's stomach tightened. Could a dragon like Ember really help defend the station? He had never imagined it. As the intruders boarded, chaos erupted. Alarms blared, and the sounds of blaster fire echoed through the corridors. Milo stayed hidden at first, watching through a small vent. Then he saw them, security teams struggling against the attackers, their weapons failing against superior numbers. Panic flared in him. The station, everything he cared about, could be lost. "Ember?" Milo whispered, barely moving his lips. "It's time." The dragon responded immediately. With a powerful leap, it soared into the corridor, roaring so loudly that even the intruders froze. Milo followed, staying low, guiding Ember through side corridors to avoid unnecessary damage. Ember's claws and wings were precise, striking only when needed, avoiding the walls and equipment Milo had come to know so well. Together they moved like a single unit, silent and deadly. Ember's roar drew attention. A group of alien invaders turned to face the dragon, but Milo noticed something astonishing. Wherever Ember moved, other dragons began appearing. They weren't just from the station, they came from the planet below, drawn to Ember's call. One by one, a small legion of dragons landed on the station, circling the intruders with wings beating like thunder. Milo couldn't believe his eyes. The tiny hatchling he had saved had grown into a leader. The invaders panicked. No one had expected dragons to defend the station, and certainly no one had expected them to obey a human. Milo realized that Ember's loyalty was absolute. The dragons didn't attack indiscriminately, they followed Milo's subtle guidance and Ember's instincts. With each swoop and strike, they pushed the intruders back, forcing them into narrow corridors where the station's security could capture them more easily. Milo moved carefully through the chaos, signaling Ember and watching the other dragons adjust. He felt a strange thrill. He was still a janitor, still human, but for the first time he felt like a force that mattered. No one had thought humans could lead dragons, could make a difference, or even be brave in the face of real danger. But here he was, directing a small army of dragons, saving the station and proving every alien wrong. Ember landed beside him, breathing fire carefully to disable an incoming security drone without harming anyone. Milo patted its scaled head. "Good job, Ember," he whispered. The dragon chirped softly, nuzzling him in return. Milo realized that his tiny act of saving a hatchling years ago had grown into something far bigger than he could ever have imagined. One small life had led to the loyalty of many, and together they had turned the tide of battle. As the intruders were pushed back and captured, the station began to settle. Alarms still blared, but the immediate threat was gone. Milo stood in the corridor, watching Ember perch on a railing, wings folded, golden eyes scanning the area. Other dragons circled above, their shadows moving across the walls. The aliens on the station looked on in shock, whispers spreading quickly. They had always underestimated humans, and now they were seeing something no one expected. A human who could lead dragons. Milo took a deep breath. He still felt small compared to the vast station, compared to the dragons he had helped grow, but for the first time he realized that size and strength were not everything. Courage, care, and the ability to act when others ignored a problem. Those were human strengths, and today they had made all the difference. That night, after the last intruder was secured, Milo returned to the storage room. Ember curled beside him, still warm and alive, its loyalty unwavering. Milo smiled, feeling a quiet pride. They had survived the day not just as human and dragon but as partners. And he knew that this was only the beginning. The bond he had nurtured in secret had turned into a force that no one could ignore, and together Milo and Ember were ready for whatever came next. The station had survived the first wave, but Milo knew the danger was far from over. The intruders had retreated, but they would return with stronger weapons, more ships, and far more firepower. The aliens in charge were panicking, arguing over strategies and defenses. Milo, once unnoticed, now found himself standing among the commanders, his mind racing. He had a plan, but it was unusual, risky, and relied on something no one expected: humans and dragons working together. Milo had spent years studying the dragons, Ember's instincts, and the layout of the station. He knew how to use the tunnels, the maintenance shafts, and even the ventilation systems to their advantage. The aliens saw only machines and walls. Milo saw opportunities. He took a deep breath, looking at Ember perched on a railing above. "Are you ready?" he whispered. Ember chirped, wings twitching as if saying, "Let's do it." Milo smiled. "Good. Then let's show them what humans can do." When the second wave of intruders arrived, the station shook with explosions and alarms. Security teams tried to hold them back, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Milo moved through the corridors, guiding Ember and the other dragons. He had trained them to respond to signals, gestures, and even sounds only a human could make. The dragons swooped and struck with precision, avoiding the station's delicate systems while disabling enemy drones and attackers. Milo's heart raced as he saw the invaders' confusion. They had expected resistance from weapons, shields, and maybe security robots, but not dragons, and certainly not a human guiding them. Milo moved through the chaos, placing sensors, opening doors, and directing the dragons to block the intruders' paths. Every move was calculated, every action counted. Ember led the other dragons in a coordinated attack, circling the corridors, creating wind tunnels that pushed the intruders off balance. Milo used this chaos to his advantage. He triggered alarms and lights to distract the enemies while signaling the dragons to strike in precise moments. The intruders panicked, unsure of what was attacking them. They couldn't predict the dragons' movements, nor the clever maneuvers of a human guiding them from hidden corridors. At one point, a large group of intruders cornered Milo near a storage hub. He froze for a moment, heart pounding. Then he signaled Ember, who swooped down with a burst of flame, not to hurt Milo or the station, but to scare the attackers. The intruders scattered, tripping over equipment and falling into the paths of the other dragons. Milo moved quickly, guiding them toward a secure area where the station's automated defenses could capture them. The aliens watching were stunned. They had dismissed humans as weak, simple, and incapable of leadership. And yet here was Milo, small and unarmed, orchestrating a force that no alien army could have imagined. He didn't shout orders or wield weapons. He thought, he observed, he acted, and the dragons obeyed. Every strike was precise, every maneuver planned. Milo realized that human ingenuity, combined with the loyalty and instincts of dragons, was far more powerful than brute force alone. Hours passed like minutes. The station shook, lights flickered, and the sounds of battle filled every corridor. Milo stayed calm, focusing on the dragons, the intruders, and the safety of the station. Ember remained at his side, powerful and alert, leading the others with intelligence and grace. Milo's mind worked quickly, solving problems on the spot, predicting intruder movements, and using the dragons in ways no one had ever thought possible. Finally, the last group of intruders was trapped. They raised their weapons in surrender, shocked and defeated. The dragons circled above, watching patiently, waiting for Milo's signal. He stepped forward, raised his hand, and Ember let out a triumphant roar. The dragons backed away, leaving the captives unharmed. Milo exhaled, feeling the tension drain from his body. The station was safe for now. The commanders approached him, their expressions a mix of shock and respect. "Human," one of them began. Milo smiled faintly. "Just a janitor," he said. But deep down he knew he had done something no one else could. His small acts of kindness, patience, and courage had grown into a force capable of saving the station. And the aliens who had dismissed humans were forced to recognize that underestimated creatures could sometimes change the course of history. Milo returned to the hidden room after the battle, his body tired but his heart full. Ember landed beside him, curling its massive body protectively. Milo reached out and touched its head, feeling the warm, smooth scales beneath his fingers. "We did it," he said softly. Ember chirped, nuzzling him gently. Milo knew that the dragon's loyalty was more than instinct. It was respect, trust, and the bond they had built together over years. As he looked out at the station from a small observation window, Milo felt a quiet pride. The invaders had been defeated, the station saved, and humans, once overlooked, had proven their worth. And Milo understood something important. It wasn't just strength or weapons that mattered. It was courage, ingenuity, and the willingness to care for others, even when no one else did. That was what made humans special. He turned to Ember, who perched proudly beside him, wings folded but ready to take flight at a moment's notice. Milo whispered, "We'll be ready for anything, Ember. Together we can face whatever comes next." The dragon chirped softly and Milo smiled. This was more than survival, it was the beginning of a new legacy. Humans and dragons working together could overcome any challenge. And Milo, the unlikely janitor, had shown the universe exactly what that meant. The station was quiet now, but Milo knew this peace was temporary. Challenges would come again, dangers would rise, and the galaxy would test them. But Milo also knew this. With courage, care, and the loyalty of dragons, humans could rise above any obstacle. And in that moment he felt unstoppable. The station was quiet now, the chaos of battle behind them, but Milo knew this quiet was different. It was not the hum of machines he was used to, nor the usual flicker of lights across the corridors. It was a quiet that carried respect, awe, and a new understanding. The aliens who had once ignored him now looked at humans differently. Not as weak or unimportant, but as capable, clever, and surprisingly brave. Milo the janitor had changed their view forever. He walked slowly through the corridors, his hands tucked into his pockets. The station felt different today. The floors were cleaner, yet every corner, every panel seemed charged with energy. Dragons perched on rails and beams above, some curled in quiet rest, others flicking their tails or spreading their wings lightly. Ember moved beside Milo, golden eyes scanning the station, ever alert. The dragon's presence was comforting, a reminder that small choices could grow into incredible power. Commanders approached him, their expressions serious but respectful. "Milo," one said, "your actions, they saved the station. You've done what no army could." Milo shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "I didn't do it alone," he said softly, glancing at Ember and the dragons perched nearby. "It was them. The dragons. They listened to me because I cared for them, because I didn't see them as weapons, but as living creatures." The aliens whispered among themselves, surprised by the humility of a human. They had always underestimated humans, treating them as fragile and weak. Yet here was one who had guided dragons to victory with nothing but courage, intelligence, and care. Milo felt a quiet pride. He hadn't needed weapons, machines, or armies, only patience, understanding, and the courage to act when it mattered. Milo returned to his storage room, now filled with dragons of all sizes. Some were smaller, like Ember had been, while others were nearly as large as the corridors allowed. The dragons trusted him completely, circling around him, brushing their wings lightly and chirping softly. Milo crouched down, placing a hand on Ember's snout. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" he whispered. Ember nudged his hand gently, as if agreeing. In the following days the station began to change. Aliens who had once mocked humans now sought Milo's advice. Engineers asked for strategies, commanders requested insight, and even the smallest staff members nodded respectfully when he passed. Milo never sought recognition, but he understood that his actions had opened a door. Humans were no longer just workers or janitors, they were leaders, thinkers, and allies capable of shaping events. Milo spent time training the dragons further, teaching them to respond to subtle signals, guiding them through drills, and fostering their intelligence. Ember had grown into a powerful leader, and under Milo's care, the dragons had become a disciplined, loyal force that could defend the station or assist in exploration. The bond Milo shared with them was unmatched. No alien could replicate it because it was built on trust, respect, and kindness. One evening, Milo climbed to the observation deck, Ember perched beside him. The station stretched out below, lights twinkling like stars on its own. Beyond the windows, the galaxy shone with distant suns and planets. Milo breathed in slowly, feeling a sense of calm. He realized that the future was uncertain. More threats would come and the station would face dangers again, but he also knew that humans could rise to meet them. Humans, when underestimated, could accomplish things others never imagined. Ember nuzzled him softly, breaking his thoughts. Milo smiled. "You've grown into something incredible," he said. "Not just you, Ember, but all of you. And it started with one small choice, saving you when you were weak." Ember chirped, wings twitching lightly. Milo laughed softly. It was a sound of relief, pride, and hope. News of Milo's deeds spread across the galaxy. Stories circulated among stations, planets, and space fleets about a human who had saved a dying dragon, nurtured it into a leader, and together they had defended an entire station. People began to see humans differently. They were no longer fragile, no longer underestimated. They were clever, compassionate, and capable of greatness. Milo never cared about fame, but he knew the impact of his actions went far beyond himself. The dragons remained by his side, a living testament to what humans could accomplish. Other humans and aliens began working together to learn from Milo's methods, building bonds with creatures previously considered untamable or dangerous. Milo had sparked a movement, not with force or intimidation, but with simple acts of kindness, patience, and courage. As Milo walked through the station one last time, he felt the dragon's eyes on him, loyal and watchful. He knew they would follow him anywhere, not because of orders but because of trust and care. That was the true power of humanity, the ability to inspire loyalty, to act with compassion, and to turn small actions into great change. Milo paused by a window, looking at the distant stars. He thought about the hatchling he had found all those years ago, weak and abandoned. Who could have imagined that small spark would grow into a legion of dragons, loyal to a single human? Milo smiled, feeling warmth in his chest. The station was safe, humans were respected, and dragons were no longer feared. They were allies, friends, and protectors. He placed a hand on Ember's head, feeling the smooth scales under his fingers. "We've done it, Ember," he whispered. "The galaxy will remember this. And we'll keep going no matter what comes next." Ember chirped softly, wings folding neatly as if agreeing. Milo knew the road ahead would not be easy, but he also knew that humans, when underestimated, could rise to any challenge. And so, Milo, the janitor, and Ember, the dragon he had saved, stood together on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Behind them, the station thrived, protected by dragons and humans working as one. Milo had begun with a simple act of kindness, but it had grown into a legacy of fire, courage, and hope, one that would echo across the galaxy for years to come.